Hello, welcome to the podcast of Startup Recruitment Failures. I am Indra, founder and CEO of JobRely. We are building AI for outbound recruitment. And today my guest is Briony McKenzie, founder of Untapped. Briony, could you please introduce yourself and your company?
Of course, yes. Thank you so much for having me here. So, Briony McKenzie, founder of Untapped. So, Untapped is an education and coaching company. We support emerging leaders through personal growth, transformation, and entrepreneurs, early stage entrepreneurs in their business development and building themselves. And so, my journey into entrepreneurship and creating Untapped started, probably 7 years ago. I was a corporate leader and I hated it, and I knew I wanted to do something else that made a difference and an impact. I just didn't know exactly what yet. And so I started going on this whole personal development journey and doing all these trainings and things. And then I really wanted to give that back to my community. And so really that's where Untapped actually started. It was simply me sharing the tools I was learning with my professional network. And it really grew from there to workshops and events. And I found my love of program design and educational experiences and really coaching. And so that's where Untapped was founded. And over 5 years, we've delivered hundreds of different types of formats and structures and worked with thousands of clients to really expand the impact. So
Awesome.
Building a team has been a fun part of that.
I can imagine. But for me, it sounds always very interesting and I think very touching too when startups are born out of the personal experience. So congratulations for that. It really takes a lot, to go out of the really good profession as a lawyer and to create something awesome on your own.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a big jump, a big transition
I
for
can
lots of
imagine.
reasons, but it's been well worth it. And yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, when talking about the team management and recruitment, I know you have quite a few stories and insights you could share. Which one would you like to start with?
I think one that was really big for me initially when I was starting to hire or think about who to hire and building that team was that initially I ended up actually hiring people that were really similar to me and to actually work in parts of the business that I loved. And the really hard part about that was eventually I found myself sitting in a seat that I didn't want to be in and doing tasks that I didn't enjoy. So basically what happened was I took myself out of a job, which they always say to do, put yourself out of a job. But I did that in an area of the company that I loved, which was delivery, and I ended up becoming a full-time marketer, which is not what I enjoy.
Okay, and so you had to switch because of people you hired needed to take these responsibilities on.
Absolutely. And I think when I first started doing the hiring, I was so comfortable with what I knew best, which was delivery in our programs and client-facing elements. And so, of course, when I went to write job descriptions and things, those are the things I felt most comfortable to hire in. But in truth, what I really probably needed was much more marketing support and much more financial element support. And so that was really hard because I built this amazing team. And I look up and I think, I had an incredible team helping deliver, but we actually needed to really pivot where everyone was operating and where we were investing our resources.
So when you realized that, what were your steps? What did you do then?
So initially I had to look at, okay, what resources do we have available? Because of course, if anyone listening, you're probably natural thoughts, then you just hire for marketing as well. But of course we had financial limitations at the time, and I had grown, for example, a team of literally we had, I think, 1 person in marketing and 8 in client delivery. So it was very off kilter. And so I had to start letting go some of our delivery team so I could have the resources again. And it wasn't even just the financial resources. It was actually what it took to then manage a team of 8 coaches. And so I had to start slowly let people go. And actually what I did do is to look at, okay, who's our really best performers, the people our community love working with the most, and put them into leadership positions so they could keep leading, the team, the delivery team. So giving them a promotion in a sense, then also letting go of kind of the big weight of the team, and then moving over to how do we hire for marketing? And I had a lot of limiting beliefs that actually I could even hire for marketing. Like, interestingly, I had this weird, who would actually want to do that for us? It actually has to be me. And I actually see that a lot in our clients, is they think, but I'm meant to be the one doing sales, or I need to be the one doing the front-end marketing. So it took a while for me to actually see on a zoomed out perspective of what I'd done, to be honest, probably at least 9 months.
Okay.
And then realizing, I've hired, the thing I love most. If I had my time again, what I would have done, or what I now get clients to do, is really do, before hiring and running into hiring, an energy audit of really looking at what are the things that absolutely drain you, and what are the things that give you energy.
Yeah.
And of course, then you just outsource the stuff that drains you, which for me was marketing. But I didn't have that resource, and I didn't even have that language of zone of genius, which is just to keep you as the creator and founder and the things that you love most. But I didn't have that. And I think weirdly, I thought I had to kind of do all the hard stuff. Yeah.
How did you prepare it for hiring people from a totally different area of work than yours? Was it difficult? Was it easy?
Really difficult for me, because I had no perspective of what I wanted them to do. There was the things I had been doing. That's not necessarily the best practice.
Exactly.
Right? And so what I ended up doing is talking to other people about what they got their marketing teams to do. So to get inspiration around, okay, well, what's out there, what's possible. And the other element that we did actually that was really helpful initially, and there was mistakes about how we did this too, but initially I hired expertise, people, not because I didn't know how to operationalize the marketing yet. I had no idea. I could operationalize all the delivery, it was my zone of genius. But there was, I couldn't just hire someone and be like, here's all our systems for you to now implement. We didn't have any systems in marketing. So initially we hired expertise, so people who were marketing specialists, at a consultant level, and they came in, had a look at what we were doing, and were like, okay, this is how you can do it better, and they helped build the systems with us, which was really, really helpful, because I didn't have the language, and I didn't really actually know what we should be doing at all.
Yeah, definitely. So you cannot know everything. That's just impossible. Yeah, because what I learned out of my recruitment experience is that you can really learn, of course, from other hiring managers, but from candidates too. So you just ask experts in that area whether, how would they do with this or that business in terms of marketing, let's say, and they could give you a very good examples. Or sometimes maybe they can say that I'm not the right specialist, you should go to another one because you don't need SEO, you need paid marketing or something. So yeah, it's very beneficial. Don't think that you have to know everything, just go in the market and ask.
I think that's an amazing insight. I really do, especially in hiring, because I do think there's a lot of pressure that we should know exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And the candidates are often the best people. They could almost write their own job descriptions. And we did do that initially. It's like, okay, well, if we hired you and put you in, what would you do? And kind of flipping that dynamic, which is so strange because it's the opposite later. But initially, I think that's really helpful.
And it's a very good exercise, to check a candidate's motivation, first of all, right? Whether they are just looking for a job or whether they're really into doing something great. And to see how they really see that, if they want to do anything at all, again, it's not the person you need. You really need to find the one who's perfectly suitable for your own individual situation.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And so you mentioned you also did a mistake hiring experts.
Yes. So we've done that. I think we've actually done this twice. So that's why I love this podcast, is that learn from the failures, learn from the lessons.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting, those patterns, and they keep repeating. But so when we brought in the marketing experts, they were fantastic. And specifically, we brought someone in helping, read all the kind of content, marketing element, email marketing. And it was really clear at the start, we actually did scope out what that project would be. And then it's an interesting thing, because I think if you love working with that person, which we did, and we developed, a real affinity, and she really got immersed in the team and things like this. But actually what happened, two kind of elements, that we then tried to operationalize the expert. So then bring that expert into kind of the day-to-day. She kind of got enmeshed into the day-to-day of the business. And I think that actually is important when you have consultants, because I don't think they should sit completely separate.
Yeah.
But I think that boundary of like, when was this relationship to then be reviewed wasn't clear enough. So then it was like, we'll just create another project and another thing and another thing. And it was almost like we were filling these gaps, which was really expensive, because the whole initial retainer was on a consultant level price versus an employee support, kind of role. And so that was an initial piece, was actually the cost, but also the fact that consultants typically like working on their own.
Yeah.
And that's why they do what they do.
Yeah.
And when you try to bring them into your whole team dynamics, like the monthly reviews and the catch-ups and everything like that, there was like a little bit of tension and resistance, that didn't necessarily go so well. It was like, but I'm not paid for that, but I don't do that. But, okay, if I'm coming to that meeting, I'm charging for it. And it was just this whole dynamic. And on reflection, it was like, wow, we love working with this person, but what's happened is like a conflict of values or even personality styles. So that was a big lesson, is like, I think having a clear line in the sand, if you do bring consultants in, if you then want them to be in day-to-day operations, doing it clear, like, we're no longer doing this kind of retainer consultant thing. You're actually part of the team now, and what does that look like?
Yeah. And it's also, I think, what it comes with the consultants is that what you mentioned is just like creating one project after another, right? Because otherwise for them it's a little bit boring. They used to work on different projects and change them frequently. So did you find the solution for that?
So on reflection, I don't know if I have the solution for that. I think what we did do with our most recent kind of consultant level was write out a list of projects we wanted to do and then just like map them over 6 months. I think the lesson is that not all of those are urgent, and what happened is that we started to prioritize those things, and there were awesome initiatives. Some of them was, merchandise, like redoing all the copy, like big projects, rebrands. But what happened is then suddenly the entire team was focused on these projects and getting these over the line, and we lost focus of like, but we still have to consistently deliver this, sell this, do this. This is actually our core business. So I think reflection was, again, it needed to be spaced out more, of like maybe come in for 3 months, then come in for another 3 months. So instead of trying to deliver those projects like one month after another, 1 month after, it was just too much for the team and distracting, actually, because
of course,
all of those matter, but are they the core priority of the business? Not usually necessarily, right? Most business, like, it's customer product stuff and sales. And so, all our attention got a little bit distracted on some of these. But they do add value to the company long term. I don't want to diminish that.
Yeah, but that's the thing, because, everyone is thinking about the long term, and especially when you're a startup, but not only as the startup, of course, but then it comes like you start creating and working on projects which don't give you a short time value, right? You're just looking forward towards the bright future, but now you start struggling with your daily operations. So I find it very confusing, and how to find the balance. It's always about the balancing, right? And it's not as easy.
No, it's not. I think we love to go up to that big vision and the grand elements. It's kind of, they're a bit sexier, they're a bit more fun. But at the end of the day, there are targets. If you want to pay a whole team, there are things that you have to deliver on. And I think it is a constant balance of, and you want to keep innovation. Like, it's so important.
Yeah. Otherwise, like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Right?
You want to keep innovating and creating new things, and then there's your wheelhouse that has to keep going. So I think it's just knowing, maybe just accountabilities as well, like really clear within the company that even if we were doing all these cool projects, like, okay, well, Briony, you're still responsible for this KPI or this accountability or this number, and everyone still have those would keep things flowing. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting, I just got completely caught up in it. It was so fun. And 6 months later, I was like, wait a minute. And I think that sometimes I reflect on when those moments happen in business that you kind of wake up and you're like, wait, how did we get here? It's important, A, to look at the patterns that got you there internally, like the actual, mindset elements and things, but also something we did was just like, okay, well, success leaves clues. So when did we last feel the most grounded, the most like we were thriving, and what were we doing, right? Not to just go back to exactly what you were doing. Yeah. But that really helped us to get back on track. It was like, all right, we didn't get distracted. When were we really thriving? Okay, it was about a year ago, we were doing this. This was happening in the ops team. This was our targets, and we were just going for it. And that helped us kind of recenter the whole team.
But was it easy? And was it the same for everyone on the team? Because some of the people could be like very much motivated on these vision and some long-term things performing, and then suddenly you have to not to step down or something, but to focus on what really matters. So maybe the motivation could decrease, no?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did do, we called like a full team meeting and complete transparency through leadership, complete responsibility, got distracted from what is, at the end of the day, the core focus of our business. It's been fun. There's elements we're going to keep, and here's what we're going to keep, and here's when we're going to do them. So, for example, every 3 months or every 6 months, we're going to add one of these really cool projects, because we were excited about a lot of the projects, for sure, like big redesigns, app launches, all these, jazzy things. We will do them in due time. We won't be able to do any of them unless we go back to the wheelhouse.
Exactly.
And it was just complete honesty. And, there was layers there for me of like feeling embarrassed or feeling like, gosh, like I haven't really steered the ship. But it was just being totally honest with the team about where we were at and, the lessons of that, and then what's actually feasible. And everyone, and then we checked in with everyone in their role and their part in that refocus. So what does that mean for your role? So for example, social media. It's like, okay, we've been doing all these we did all these like giveaway initiatives, all these cool things. And we're going to bring back some sales, right? Because we just, again, hadn't been doing any proper sales strategies for like 6 months. It was just all these fun things. But we're going to bring, how are you going to grow in that? Here's what we can train you, and here's what we can teach you. Are you excited by that? Is that a learning opportunity? And so we went with each team member and was like, this is what it's going to look like for this role. Is that exciting? How can you grow into that role? What benefits are there for each team member with this recenter? But yeah, I think we did navigate that relatively well, I think, actually, on hindsight, and it was quite recent, that whole recentering. But I think every person needs to know, like, what is the recreative role? And I think as a leader, you need to kind of clean up a little bit. What I mean is like integrity. It's like, if you promised all of this and it's not going to happen, just like navigate the impact on team members. And it was really well received. Everyone got re-inspired and re-motivated. And to be honest, I think people underestimate their team. It's like, they totally got it, They're like, we do need to do that.
I think what is very important is to be honest, first of all, with yourself and then with the team. Because as you said, it could be embarrassing, right? Because you are the leader and somehow you start doing things who do not attract revenue, and you have to stand up in front of everyone and to say that, okay, now no fun, now we're working, right? And to admit that, and to deal with this like resistance, because maybe some of the people worked here just because it was funny, right? They don't care about the end result or something. But again, maybe it's a very good test, to see who is who and who really should be on your team, because it's not like graved in stone, right? And especially with startups, because businesses evolve and responsibilities evolve, and maybe some people got bored, or maybe they are not like able to take this evolving responsibility. So it should be very agile, I think, especially in small and growing companies.
Yeah, and I think, and it's just using that as an opportunity to see who's really in the team, who's there for whatever the company needs. And yeah, transparent, vulnerable leadership. I love that you brought that up. It's like it starts with you. And you can only really lead from that place, because I think otherwise it just doesn't translate as well. People kind of wonder what's happening. They can feel something, but they don't know.
Like this. Yeah.
There's a bit of that. And I think that's purely when there's ego in leadership instead of just getting real. There's something so liberating about just getting honest about where it's at and having your team support you in that.
Yeah, I totally agree. We humans can sense everything. Maybe not understand everything, but we can sense that something is wrong, And if you start feeling like that, you cannot be motivated and fully on board.
Yeah.
And before we talked about changing the team dynamics, maybe you could share this example and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, this was totally hiring people that have a similar operating system to you. So what happened for us is that startup, early, fast, pivoting, quick responses, like that was the team culture. And I actually think it is in a lot of startups. It's kind of the, people talk about the pace and the nature of the industry, or whatever, the nature of the style of business and things. I appreciate that. And I think there's blind spots to that style of working. Obviously, workaholism, burnout, like all of these things that we want to avoid in our team culture.
Because you have to be active all the time.
Reactivity, right? Not enough pause, reflect, think about the impact of this. Unfortunately, due to the style of what you're trying to do and all these pivotal roles and things, that naturally happens, that kind of culture, and that's what happened for us. People felt like, me included, needed to be online all the time. And as a digital team, that's hard to be constantly connected. And so if you're constantly connected and firing back non-stop and Slack, are you really doing the deep work?
Exactly.
That's adding value to the company. So we just had a lot of this reactivity going on, constantness, constant communication, overcomplication in a way. And my life and business partner, Delaney, is a much super intellectual, takes way more space for thinking. And when he came into the team, we'd been operating for 2 years, and he was like, this is chaos. Like, this is not, there's not enough strategic thinking happening. There's not enough time out, boundaries. Like, it was just, and that was hard for me because we had created success in that way. Right. So I was like, well, it works. It works. Look at us. We're scaling. We're growing. Right. And so super righteous about it. And, that was difficult for him to actually work in a team like that initially, and it was because we had probably 7 of us operating in a similar functioning style. He didn't fit. It's like, you don't fit, you're the outlier. It's like, actually, so in so many layers of things there, right? Firstly, you've hired way too many people like you, and as I said, there's not like enough strategic pause and time. Plus, you're also not a workplace that's available for diversity, really. You haven't got diversity of thought. Obviously, there's loads of versions of diversity, but simply the fact that it was just this kind of reactive doing style. So, we got heaps done, but was our ladder on the right wall? Not always. Right? We're just charging up that ladder instead of like, are we actually leaning on the right wall? Are we going in the right direction? So what we ended up doing is scaling, building an awesome team, love the team, but just scaling in a way that wasn't conscious, wasn't intentional, wasn't even scalable, actually. What we built was a road to burnout and just the hamster wheel of the business we built, because there wasn't enough pause and intentionality. So that was really hard to admit. And after that, I actually, we took about 12 months of complete redesign of our products, style of our community. But the thing that forced that was going traveling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened? How did you not realize but admit it to yourself that you really need to change something here?
Took a while. Took a while, to be honest. So initially, the first thing we did was actually know, it was awesome what we built, but we were like, we need to take some space for us. So we decided we were going to go overseas. So move away from New Zealand. We're Kiwi. We're living in New Zealand. We're going to travel for a bit. Now, of course, if you travel with your business, even though people talk about remote businesses, it's disruptive. We had a very grounded base. We had a home office. We had the whole setup. So it's going to be disruptive. That was the first thing we did, which I think at that point, I don't think I fully admitted the entire business model and way of operating needed to change. It was just we needed to change. And so it was layers. And by the time we ended up in Costa Rica, firstly, we were in the jungle, the Wi-Fi is terrible. But the time zone is what actually forced this pause, this space from each other, from clients, from team. It slowed. Everything had to slow. And there's a super big discomfort in the slow, which is, purely a reflection of
Of course, it's not used to. No one is not.
New operating system, and the whole nervous system's used to fight, flight, for that kind of high energy, which a lot of entrepreneurs operate from. And so I was like, oh wow, well this is quite nice. I'm comfortable that this is important. And in that space of the time zones, purely meaning team had to operate more in, I wouldn't say silos is the word, but less reactivity. People are offline for 8 hours. Okay, cool. I'm just going to do my thing. I think we started to get really amazing insights about what we actually wanted to build and how we'd been working. And it was a smack in the face of wow, that was not sustainable. And in fact, that's not the team culture that we want to build.
What did you change in your operations? Because, people cannot change so easily if the whole environment hasn't changed at all.
Yeah, so we did we brought in a concept of just online hours, which was just, and now we still adhere to that with the whole team, which was just when I was a lawyer, there was this concept presenteeism, which was basically just be seen to be present. And I think that still exists in the digital world, whether people like it or not. It was I'm on scene, be there, be seen to be there. And so we just brought in online hours, which was just simply these are the times that our time zones cross over. So this is when we'll be online. And that's it. Outside of that, you have your accountabilities, you have your projects, you can reach out to people if you need things. But these are the times that we need to be online. So that operationally brought us together really cohesively and super intentionally. When we had that time, it was having the conversations that really mattered.
Exactly.
And it was really powerful. We just have strategy meetings, ask the questions we needed answers to, and it became super intentional at that time. And then outside of that, because we didn't have so many demands from everyone, or everyone didn't have so many demands or messages and things, we were all able to add real value to the company by dialing in on our own things. So our COO, refined all our operations systems. My partner Dee really looked at all the marketing systems we were doing. Right? I looked at the delivery of how we were delivering our programs. I was these aren't scalable. So we all got to sit with hard questions in the space. And then we had to make hard decisions. Right?
Yeah, but this is a huge benefit, right? Because if you're in the rush every day, how can you find time? And even any thought would come to your mind to sit down and to analyze because you're too busy. You have to deal with all the fires.
That's it. And so it really, and a lot of people talk about that. You've got to have the space and the time off. There's a lot of that in the self-care kind of world. But interestingly, ours was forced, and it was amazing. And it was the best thing that we ever did. And it created a whole new way of operating. So I always think about this as well. People often ask, how do you work with your partner? How do you, create boundaries? And we always say that as well, is that the environment will shift the habits. Because if you operate in the exact same environment, same office, same place, same thing, it doesn't spark new creativity.
Yeah.
So us shifting complete environments then shifted the way we wanted to operate.
That's right. We had actually a similar situation at Job Rely, and as to you, for me, it was very difficult, to admit that something is wrong. But the Slack was on fire all the time. All the channels were in red, and everything was happening everywhere, basically. And then I realized that, like too many people are doing the same thing because they're discussing between each other about everything which should be decided. They don't have their own accountability at all because everyone has to be involved. So in our case, it was salespeople and project managers, right? So they're working for the same client and everyone is involved, So it's all the time chatting and not doing their own jobs because chatting and they're making decisions, and it's of course important and of course it's fun, but it's really exhausting. So what we also did, we just draw a very like boundaries, for everyone who is responsible for what, and when this accountability from salespeople go to project managers, and when sales managers should be involved. If not, project managers cannot ask them, to just to discuss quickly or something. But it's like a very, I think it's a habit and it's very natural for us humans because we want to socialize and discuss, and sometimes we're a little bit afraid to make this decision on our own. So better take someone else on board, and to be stronger if you fail, for example, or something.
And just really that. Like, if we really get down to it, my partner also thinks this also, he has this concept that he thinks it's also acknowledgement. Like sometimes people want to be seen to be doing things, so they're like, I'm doing this thing,
Yeah,
and
I am active.
Totally. And I look him on stuff that is so not important to him and should not be taking up his brain space. And I'm like, what do you think about this? And he's like, it's your accountability. I love that. I think particularly with digital teams, it's more organic if it happens in an office. You just see someone. I mean, you have to be careful of taking up people's bandwidth, but it's a bit more natural. But definitely that Slack stuff and constantness, and I love that distinction. It's just that's yours. Yeah. And actually, you don't need anyone else. And I think employees only need to know that you'll back them if they make a decision that's expensive or wrong. I think that's. I think there's the founder letting go of control and realizing that you're the bottleneck, because that happened to me for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing too.
And I love that. It's just like quieting the noise. So much noise.
Yeah, and I think it also could be a good signal or like red flag, because in our case, the salesperson was very much involved in the project to show off like he's very busy and everything, but there were no sales done, right? And the excuse was that they are so much involved in the project delivery when they don't have time for sales. And when we draw the boundaries, we notice that person is just not willing to work in sales, they should go and work in project management. So it's also like, very important to identify who is driven by what. And sometimes people end up in the positions, and by doing that, you can see that their heart is in totally different area. So you can just transfer that person to a different department.
I love that. And something we implemented recently to add to that kind of experience was, we had all the KPI stuff, key performance indicators for everyone. Everyone had 4 of those, and we were reviewing them at our team meeting every week, and it just wasn't that inspiring, to be honest, and it felt kind of overwhelming. What we ended up doing that added to this whole kind of accountability decision making is like everyone gets one number. That's it. So, Briony, yeah, sure, you can grow the podcast, you can, make sure the clients are happy, you can do all of that. Your one number.
Yeah, that's good. I like it.
And it was really helpful to simplify that responsibility element. Yeah, so on the marketing person, it was like number of leads per week. That's it. You can do that whatever way you like.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's your number. And it became really, the only one that we didn't quite crack was our executive assistant. It's kind of like what that number is for her. But I was talking to someone the other day, and they thought like what could be cool is that then the founder says like numbers of hours spent doing admin, and then that the EA's job is like get that down and down and down. But yeah, sales target number, customer satisfaction, like whatever but it really helps simplify that responsibility element.
Yeah, I really love it. And in OKRs, it's like you have one objective and then are the key results you need to achieve in order to reach this objective, right? So I like it. Yeah, I think most of the team and maybe ours too have too many objectives. And then it's like, what am I really doing? I'm multitasking, I'm busy, but I don't achieve anything at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. And when we looked at our KPIs, it was like, what are all of these, because everyone has their areas they're responsible for, they work in, and then we had all these KPIs. And I think we sometimes inherit these business structures because it's kind of what we've been told to do. But it is important to measure effectiveness.
Yeah.
And it did make us feel scattered, also a little bit disempowered, to be honest, because it was kind of like, you're winning, you're winning. It was just this, it felt overly complicated when really you look at all of them and you're like, well, you're literally just trying to achieve one thing. So why not just have it be that one thing?
Yeah.
And making sure that the team culture, it's like accountability, but also we talk about that distinction of accountability, responsibility. So yeah, that's your number. You're allowed to utilize the team's resources and bring people in where relevant. It's like, hey, I've got this idea for this. Like, this is my number, this is mine to move. But you're still, it's not like you're working on your own completely on it. And yeah, trying to eliminate too much shame, because sometimes there can be a culture of, I'm not hitting my number, and it's like, it is just a number, it's made up, it's important, but like, lightening the energy, it's like a whole dynamic, I think, with it, because it can otherwise feel quite heavy. So ways to make it feel playful. So it's a game.
And plus, I think that, people themselves should come up with the exact number, with the exact, result or like objective they are achieving. And it can be changed, because if you try for a quarter and you see that it's not going as fast as you expected, you can make it lower. Usually it grows, right? Because if you have something and the target should be higher than it's possible to achieve, then you just do more and you manage to achieve that. Yeah. And what is also very interesting, because you mentioned that you're working with your partner, and I think nowadays it's getting more and more popular to do that. But how's it going? Is it easy? Did you have to work a lot in terms of your relationship and to set the boundaries?
We did. And I have met a few couples that didn't. And I'm like, that's amazing, because that was not our experience. And, you have to be careful of getting wrapped up in all those beliefs. Like, it's hard. It's also incredible, and such an incredible advantage and amplification if you work with it. We are seeing trends in our business as well of couples coming in together or having a vision to work together. Actually,
I really like it.
It is. It's incredible. It's such a gift. And to be honest, if you can work in a business together, like, your personal life in terms of team dynamics just goes like, Dee and I are like a powerhouse team, and the weekends when it's like life admin or booking things, it's just like doof, because we know each other's strengths, and so it's really easy.
Yeah, and you can definitely trust each other, right?
Absolutely.
Because you know each other.
Yeah. So in the beginning, very challenging, complete honest confession. I was very righteous. I had 2 years in the business myself, so I thought my way was the highway. I knew what I was doing. So I was righteous initially, and I wasn't open enough to seeing his superpowers and his strengths, and that's, again, hard to admit. But I think it's a pattern I see with some really high-performing people or successful entrepreneurs. It's like, because they kind of have this perception that what they don't do, it works. And so that initially was tough for him to know, like, where to have his gifts honoured and respected. It took a while and took a lot of like me letting go and surrendering and letting him into the business properly.
So how did you manage to accept it?
Yeah, so we worked with there's Gallup strengths. So we actually did quite a lot of profiling stuff, and I'm not always like, profiling tools I love. We do use them in some of our recruitment processes. There's certain ones that we really resonate with and enjoy. And one of those is actually Gallup Strengths, which is pretty standard, pretty old actually. But what it did is that we also hired a coach to go with doing the assessment.
Oh, that's nice.
Otherwise, assessment's like, this is very interesting. It's like, what do you do with that? So we hired a Gallup's trained strengths coach, which obviously, having a coaching background, we know the value of not information, not content, but context. Like, cool, this is insightful. How do we apply this to our context? And so we only did like 3 sessions with that coach, but it was really like, these are your superpowers, and these are the ways that you will not understand each other and actually really activate each other. So Dee's got super high ideator. So he's just like, riffing in the car some ideas, and I'm activated and disciplined, and so I'm like writing all these things down and thinking we have to action these on Monday, and I would get so distressed. Like, I'd be like, I have a huge to-do list, and he'd be like, they were ideas. Yeah, he was like, oh my gosh, Briony, no, we don't need to action those. So he's kind of like learned like when to know how to ideate, and also when to not bring me in on ideation. Actually, Briony's better once the ideas are formulated, being assessed through the lens of like what's most feasible and impactful, and then we give it to Briony and she runs, because that's what I'm good at. It's like, give me a thing, let me run. And so that was like one example that was so powerful. And then, of course, I don't actually have ideation as strong, so I can get stuck on things. So it was me learning to go to him and go, D, I need 7 ideas of how I can sell this program or how I can do this with the community. And then he can, it's super easy for him to be like, don't, like literally so many ideas. And then help me work through the kind of strategy of those. So learning our strengths was really cool because I think in a weird way, sometimes in businesses, I think everyone thinks they're the most important person as well. It's like this funny, I think sales is most important. Well, I think marketing's very important. And so having that language was like, wow, this is all really, unique skills. So that the Gallup strengths was really powerful. And then the other element we did within our business is they say you don't have business problems, you have personal problems that then show up in your business. And I don't know if you're familiar, obviously our background is consciousness, personal growth tools and things, so we use those elements and go to that deeper level. So we did a lot of work around a concept called the attachment theory. And attachment theory is simply from when you're really little, you develop ways that you form bonds with people and things, actually. So attachment theory is really interesting because it doesn't matter if it's an intimate partner or your attachment to your business or your attachment to your team.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's the theory of how you relate to things. And so we worked on that a lot because there's three main types, but there's anxious attached, which is basically we didn't get enough of that connection when we were little. And so we're kind of like anxiously always seeking goods for connection, always communicating in Slack non-stop. It's an attachment style. When you then feel rejected, you switch, right? Because that's that form of, you're trying to connect. Secure, I think actually there's a significant proportion of people are secure, but secure is like you were right, there was enough love, there was enough attention. You feel secure in your bonds. You don't react, you don't switch off, you don't over-attach. And then there's avoidant, which D is. Which is basically very switched off, very disengaged. You didn't actually get your needs met at all, therefore you don't really even ask for your needs. You're just kind of very, they call them, so in relation together, D is what they call an island. So avoidant style can be perceived to be disengaged, isolated, rude, like it can really be seen that way. And I am what they would call a wave. So the wave comes over the island and crushes the island, right? So I'm a wave, constantly bidding for connection, constantly trying to create these things, and actually pushes the avoidant further away. So we worked with a relationship counsellor to work on attachment theory, because that was playing up in our business.
Wow, that's really strong. Congratulations. It's really not just going to work it out or not. You are really controlling this.
Totally. It was absolutely transformational because it goes beyond any mindset work, any operations, click up stuff.
Right? Any situation, basically.
It goes right to the base of biology. Which is that, I feel connected or disconnected. And so when we solved that, we were on the same team, and our nervous systems, it's all about keeping your nervous system online, attachment theory. So when an avoidant goes off, they call it offline. They switch off. They look. Their eyes go back into the back of their head. They just look like they're glazed over. Anyone listening will probably be like, "Oh my gosh, she's a partner," or like you'll know someone. And so when you keep your nervous system being, regulated and online, it keeps everyone in the conversation in a healthy way. Yeah, so we did a lot of work around that, and that just like completely transformed how we operated together. And we both felt like we were on the same team for the first time in years.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was deep work, but it really made
it sounds it was. Yeah, but it's awesome. I really enjoy it. I think it's a very good advice for others, not just to let it go and to see how it will work out, but really, try to work on it because it's important. It's relationship, right?
Yeah. And the benefit you then get when, to be honest, like for example, this concept of going online and offline, the amount of time and energy that gets wasted in relationships, not just intimate, but in your team dynamics. There's attachment theories everywhere. There's so much time and energy. When someone goes offline energetically, people can take days to come back or not. You can come back, right? Yeah. There's a lot of wasted productivity and energy. And so when you do that deeper layer work, it creates, you get massive benefits that you can't even imagine because everyone is consistently present, engaged, feels safe.
And it's healthy communication. It's not just because of to prove something, because there's something behind, and it's not out. Great. So to conclude, Briony, what would be your main advice or insight you would like to share with other founders when it comes to hiring and recruitment?
I think as a leader, or a conscious leader, we have such a deep responsibility to do our own internal work because you will hire our teams are just emanations of us initially, or like ripples of us, reflections of us. And so I've seen so many founders get angry, frustrated, blame, and it's just a complete mirror of something that's happening internally. And so I think as leaders, it's like, where can we keep doing that inner work on ourselves, on our blind spots, on our strengths, on our ways that we don't communicate effectively so that our teams can really benefit. I think that's hugely important because, you bring these incredible people in and I think to really thrive, having the whole team be able to have those conversations is pretty awesome.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. And thank you to all the listeners. For more podcasts, please visit jobrely.com.